Here we are starting our trip. This is Ed Ellis captaining the boat. Here we have Alex Cameron, a good friend of mine from my climbing days in Phoenix. And here we have Mateo, my son. We are leaving from Soldiers Creek, Alabama, and going to make a trip up to Kentucky Lake in Kentucky, up the Tenn-Tom waterway. This is a chart of the start of our trip. We start over in Soldiers Creek, Alabama. We don't get into the Gulf of Mexico. Instead, we follow the Intercoastal Waterway over to Mobile Bay, and then up to the city of Mobile, and then up the Mobile River. The trip at 10:30 a.m. from Soldiers Creek. Here are some of the cargo ships that are offloading at the Mobile Bay shipyards. We passed by the Mobile, Alabama Convention Center about 7 p.m., and this will mark mile marker 0.0 of the Tenn-Tom waterway. Our first anchorage at 12 Mile Island, which is mile marker 12.0. We always anchor at the inside bend of a river so the tugs and barges can get around the outside of us. We have our generator set up and we're anchored for the evening. Arriving at the Coffeyville Dam and Lock. This is our first lock that we've encountered on our way up to Tenn-Tom. Whenever you arrive in a lock, you always pull over to the side of the lock and grab a bollard. That's a bollard right there. And the bollard rises or lowers with the level of the water. So you wrap a couple loops of rope around the bollard to make sure that you hold yourself close to it. And then as the level of the dam rises, as the level of the water rises or lowers, your boat goes along with it. There's a lot of twists and turns in the rivers, as you can see from our chart here. Mateo learned how to tie a monkey fist knot, mostly decorative, but you can still use it to throw a rope farther. A kingfisher bird landed on our lifeline. Every morning we would top off our tank from the spare tanks of gas we were carrying. That way we could keep track of the miles per gallon and the gallons per hour of gas for the trip. So, I don't know if this was real or not, but it looked like we could stop and buy a taco from this guy in the middle of nowhere alongside the river. And maybe we should have stopped and tried. This guy probably could have kept us busy for half a day with stories he could tell us. We went through a lot of locks, and all the same, you pull up side, wrap a couple loops around the bollard, hold on tight, exit out the top side of the lock. A lot of rainy days on the river, but this was good. It kept the temperatures down and it was mostly pretty refreshing. This one night we anchored in our usual spot on the inside bend of the river, and there were a lot of tugs and barges that went around the outside bend of that river that night. A lot of them had these huge, powerful spotlights that they would sweep the river with. Others didn't have any spotlights at all. I don't know what was going on with that. I think they were on auto-navigate from the charts. And we used those charts. They were pretty accurate. They kept you in between the red and the green buoys, and they let you know if you were in shallow water. One evening, we had a lot of trouble with our generator. Every 10 minutes it would die. We'd have to go up there and pull it and crank it, and finally it would start. And then it would die again. And we repeated this for hours. Finally decided it must have been because it had been left out in heavy rain that day, and water got in the tank. So anyway, this was our solution. It doesn't get any better than this. Mateo cooking Spam and cheese sandwiches on the grill. Rainy days clearing through the locks. On this day, we had to share the lock with a barge tug named Creole Sue. Actually, it was kind of stressful. We cleared through a lot of locks on this trip between Mobile, Alabama, and Kentucky Lake. I think in total we cleared through 13 locks, and at some point there was a lock every 5 or 10 miles. So we got to be pretty good at clearing through locks by the end of the trip. Smithville Marina, not really recommended. I think we were the only operable boat in the whole marina, no toilet paper in the bathrooms, and we picked up an unexpected guest. I believe that's a copperhead snake that we found in our engine well. Our tallest lock of the trip, Whitten Lock, 84 feet tall, pretty impressive. Finally, Grand Harbor Marina at the entrance to Pickwick Lake. This was mile marker 450 on the Tennessee-Tombigbee waterway. It was the end of the Tennessee-Tombigbee waterway and the entrance to the Tennessee River. We're now entering the Tennessee River at its mile marker 215. So Grand Harbor Marina had a courtesy car that we could use to go to dinner at Freddie T's, and it was a very nice place. They were not monitoring Channel 16, so we had to call them on the phone. They were closed for the day, but the security guard answered. Last lock, Pickwick Lake to the Tennessee River. We will finally be going downstream with the current instead of working our way against the current as had been the whole way up through the Tenn-Tom waterway. This bridge had a train on it. This was a vertical lift bridge around New Johnsonville on the Tennessee River, and we had to wait for 2 trains to go by, one northbound, one southbound, and after the trains had gone by, they vertically lifted the whole span of bridge and we could pass under it. We had a decent galley. We had a convection oven, a rice cooker, and a microwave, and Mateo was a pretty good cook with all of them, although I'm not sure what he's doing with the fly swatter. Isle Marina, New Johnsonville, Tennessee. This is kind of where it all started for us. We drive all the way down to Pebble Isle Marina in Tennessee to work on our boat until we finally got a good enough engine on it that we could take that boat the rest of the way up to our marina, Green Turtle Bay, in Grand Rivers, Kentucky. And believe it or not, there were still a couple people there who remembered us. Kentucky Lake. We finally reached our destination. Time for just a little swimming off the back of the boat and relaxing. We threw up our sails and sailed most of the rest of the way all the way down to the end of the lake. End of the trip. Our boat in its slip at Green Turtle Bay Marina, Lake Barkley.